introduction, but very important to welcome you, Fred Berner, who is the director of the Chamber of Commerce, French German Chamber of Commerce in Saarbrück in Germany. And thank you, Fred. And I have the opportunity to meet Fred. It was in August, and thanks to Dorothée. So thank you, Dorothée. And Dorothée is well connected with this Chamber of Commerce, and not because it's a French chamber, French-German Chamber of Commerce, but if we have Fred here, it's because we have a very active organization in Germany, and with a very good, excellent knowledge about the business in Germany. So a very good opportunity to share more information and in order to help our clients to develop their business, and of course, specifically in Germany. So the best maybe is to let you continue, Fred, and happy to have your presentation, and because we have a not so big group, but it's an opportunity maybe to share questions and answer after your presentation. Thanks a lot.
Of course, thank you very much, Mark. Thank you also for this opportunity given to give you some insights about doing business in Germany. That is something that we do since many, many years. Do you want to give some hints to how people shall connect and maybe put their microphones off during the presentation? Of course, there is you're certainly used to it. There's a chat box, so don't feel free to write down a few questions, and we will have I think we planned 10-15 minutes at the end of the webinar for questions for a Q&A session. So feel free to ask your questions, to note them down. We'll come back to the questions at the end. I have prepared a very dense presentation for you today. I hope I will be able to go through all of it. It's a bit ambitious, but I thought it's important for us to go through the most extensive information for you today, for you and for your clients. Yes, we have an agenda today with a few points that I want to highlight here. First, we'll start with giving some information about the potential of the German market, the way we see it, some macroeconomic figures, and also figures about the exchanges between Germany and other countries. Our main focus at the French Chamber in Germany is, of course, the French-German bilateral trade. So many of my figures will be compared between France and Germany. But some of them are also more global. Second point will be some intercultural approach, which is very important if you want to make business with the Germans, and in particular help and support French doing business in Germany. You have to tackle this aspect, of course. Then we will have a look at some of the main strategic choices that arise when you are a foreign company wanting to enter the German market, and I will give you some practical solutions and case studies inspired by the companies that we've been accompanying these years. And we'll end up with some do's and don'ts in the interaction with Germans in a business context. So let's start maybe just with a few information about who we are. My name is Fred Berner. I'm the managing director of the French Chamber of Commerce in Germany and of its subsidiary Strategy and Action International. That's why you will see on every of our slides this CCI France Allemagne and Strategy and Action copyright. We help and support mainly French companies develop on the German market, but we also with our sister company, Strategy and Action International, help and support companies from other places. We have clients from Europe, Italy, Spain, UK, and also clients from the Americas, from some of them from Asia. So we can help and support companies with this subsidiary from all over the place. In total, we have 40 multilingual talents, I call them. 2 sites in Germany, 2 sites in France, 2,400 square meters of office space, 110 workstations, a state-of-the-art IT. We have a warehouse here in Germany for our clients to deliver their goods over here, and we dispatch them in the whole country. We are, the French Chamber, a non-profit, but 100% self-financed organization. And the main activities that we have is business development. Today we have 14 people who are active in supporting clients in their business development over here, 40 plus projects per year. And we have contracts with these companies during lasting 6 months to several years. Besides business development, we also help companies set up their local operations over here. Talking about Germany, we have 2 business centers, Saarbrücken, where I am based today, and Frankfurt. And we have additional addresses with partner business centers in other main cities of Germany: Hamburg, Berlin, Düsseldorf, Stuttgart, and Munich. Here, 15 people work in this area and support our clients with with customer relationship management and accountancy. More than 250 companies have a subsidiary or a business office in our premises today. Some 30 to 40 new ones come every year, and some of them leave us also because they're too successful and they need their own operations. We rent offices, and we spend more than 20,000 hours per annum helping and supporting these clients in the interaction with their own clients over here. We also do recruitment. We have 3 senior recruiting consultants, so that when our clients have developed their business enough to justify to recruit their own people, we will help and support them to recruit these people, to find them, to pass over the project, and also to manage with their payroll. And last but not least, we support companies in mergers and acquisition. And this is another strategic way to implement on the German market. There is organic growth and external growth. We support companies in screening the market, seeking for opportunities, qualifying targets, contacting the owners, and support them by negotiating for mergers and acquisition. So this is roughly what we do. We've been doing this since more than 40 years now, and I'm the managing director of this company since 3 years now. But I was around much earlier. Now let's come to the point, starting with, as I promised, some information about the market potential. Here I have a series of slides with many figures. Of course, you will have access to the presentation afterwards. So I will go through a series of slides with figures, only use them to put some argument on the screen, but you will have enough time to go through them after the webinar. Starting with, I promised some comparison between France and Germany. Here are some macroeconomic key figures comparing Germany to France. The country itself is Germany smaller than France. Actually, it's 2/3 of the surface of France, but they have 1.2 more inhabitants, 83 million compared to the 67 we have in France. So of course, the density is much higher in Germany than in France, around 2 times as dense over here than in France. In Germany, you never really leave a city. It's very dense, especially in the western part of the country. GDP, that's 2020 figures. It's 1.4 times higher in Germany than in France, which means that with 1.2 more population, you have a ratio of 1.2 GDP per inhabitant in favor of Germany. The forecasts, well, of course, with the COVID pandemic, 2020 was not a good year for Germany, who lost 4.7% of GDP, but more than that for France, who lost 8.7 point of GDP. The forecasts are now that Germany will end up 2021 with 2.6 GDP surplus compared to 2020. France will do better. Of course, they started from lower, but they will do better this year. 6.3 is foreseen for 2021. And as you can see here 2022 is 4.1 for Germany and 3.7 for France. So the recovery is more a 2022 topic for Germany than for France. Public deficit. The Germans were very proud, and we'll see some slides further on with their public deficit policy so far. And it's a country, one of the rare countries that was compliant with the Maastricht criteria with this regard. Now, of course, with 2020, they had to support the economy more than ever, and we have a deficit of 6% in 2020. It's 10.5 for France. Trade balance, it's still positive and very positive in Germany. So the difference between exports and imports, it's a trade surplus of around 180 billion euros in 2020. It's a deficit of 62.5 for France. Inflation, it's higher in Germany. Actually, for the month of October 2021, it was 4.1%, when it's only 2.6 at the moment in France. Public debt, this is also something that makes a difference between Germany and France. And because we have 71% public debt compared to the GDP in Germany, 118 for France. And the non-financial company debts is 51% in Germany, when it's 86% in France. Unemployment rate is also something that distinguishes Germany from France, because you have roughly half the unemployment rate in Germany than you have today in France. So this is for a brief overlook, macroeconomic overlook, comparing France to Germany or Germany to France. Let's go into details. Germany is the fourth world economy. You have here figures in $billion for 2020. You see here that Germany ranks number 4 worldwide, behind USA, China, and Japan. France ranks number 7, behind the UK and India in 2020. So it's a very, very, very important country in terms of potential. And I was talking earlier about the exports. Of course, Germany is a world exporter. It's ranking number 3 worldwide, with behind China and the USA, and before Netherlands, Japan, and etc. France is only ranking 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, number 9 worldwide. And 88% of what Germany exports are finished industrial goods. So it's not semi-products, it's finished industrial goods, like cars, for instance. And if you look at what the export weight compared to the GDP, you have 36.3%. That's 2020. It was much higher. It was over 40% in 2019. So more than 1/3 of the German GDP is exported. It's 18% in France. It's 14 or 15% in the UK, 12% in China, 12% in Japan, and only 7% in the US. So in terms of what export weight compared to the GDP, Germany is number 1. Here you have another chart, very interesting, that shows the global market share of the countries. And you see that Germany has, or had in 2000, 8.5% world market share. And at the end of 2019, it was 7.9. So it's quite constant. Germany, was able to maintain its market shares, its worldwide market shares, during these 20 last years, where countries like the US or even France in orange here, were had declining market shares, and of course China had rising market share. So Germany is quite sustainable in terms of a market share, worldwide market share. And here you have a very interesting picture showing in which country Germany is supplier number one. Every time you see the German flag, it means that Germany is supplier number one for these countries. I only have here information about the European situation, but this is quite remarkable. Import. German is also a very large importer of goods. It's actually worldwide number 3 behind the US and China. And here again, if you compare this figure, export $1,170 billion in 2020 to the GDP, you have 30.8%. Imports represent 22% of the French GDP, 23% of the UK GDP, 14% of China GDP, 12% of Japan GDP, and 12% or 11.5% of the US GDP. So the degree of openness of Germany towards goods coming from elsewhere on the planet is very good, is very important. Of course, in this figure, you also have re-imports of goods that are manufactured by German key accounts who have factories all around the planet. But this is true for all the countries that you have in the listing. And all in all, if you see here the curves, the upper curve is the exports, Ausfuhr in German, and the lower curve is the import. You see that they never cross. Since 2008, they've never crossed. Even in 2009, Germany had a trade surplus of 138 billion euros, and last year a trade surplus of 180 billion. And here, if you compare this trade surplus to the GDP, Germany has the best result with 5.5%. The trade surplus represents 5.5% of the German GDP. No other industrial country does better. And here you have the situation with who Germany is trading. On the right-hand side, the ranking of the trade partners, meaning if you add what Germany exports to countries with what Germany imports from countries, you have number 1 partner is China, 9.5% of the trade volumes with Germany. Then Netherlands, of course, Netherlands has Rotterdam. Rotterdam is one of the most important import platform for Europe. So many goods transit through the Netherlands, and this goes into the statistics, of course. Then the US, and then France, and all the other countries that you have here. Most of them are European countries, as you can see. And here you have the most important trade partners of Germany. On the left-hand side, the main suppliers of Germany, and on the right-hand side, the main clients of Germany. France ranks number 5 in the supplier list, and in number 3 in the client list. So Germany is used to trade with these countries, and especially with France. And here, last figure about exports or international trade is the surplus and the deficits that Germany has with various countries. It has trade surpluses with the US, with France, with the UK, etc., and it has trade deficits with China, Ireland, Vietnam, etc. So the main trade deficits are logically with Asian countries. Now, which are the sectors of excellence of Germany? First, very important to see that industry weights still 23% of the German GDP. It's more than double what it weights in France. France has roughly 11.5% of its GDP in industry. So Germany is strong, and is especially strong in exports because of the strengths of its industry. And here you have the main industrial sectors of Germany. Automotive still weights more than 430 billion euros every year. Machine building, these are figures of 2019. I didn't have these the figures of 2020, but I think the ranking is not different. Machine building is the second most important sector, then pharma and chemical industry, food industry, electrotech, oh here, sorry, it's still in French here, metalworking and transformation, construction, building, plastic industry, paper, and the T stands here for textile. So these are the main industries in Germany, and no wonder that you find these main industry again in the ranking of what Germany exports. Here is the value of exports this time in 2020, and you will find automotive, machines, chemical, electronics, metalworking, etc., pharma, same excellence fields, industrial excellence fields that we had before are to be found here again on the export side. What is also to be said and remarkable is that this German industry is spread all over the place. You don't have, you know, these areas, these very dense areas like you find them in France, around the Paris area region, or around the Lyon region, where a lot of industries are implemented. You know, it's all over the place in Germany. That's very characteristic of this country. And even though you see territorial imbalances on some items, here you have the map of the largest cities in the country, and you'll see that this region here, which is called North Rhine-Westphalia, has the most important density of cities, of large cities, above 50,000 inhabitants in the country. Cities like Cologne, like Düsseldorf, like Dortmund, etc. 18 million inhabitants in this region, North Rhine-Westphalia. And then you have, of course, Berlin is the largest city in Germany, but around Berlin, not a lot of density of city density. And in the sum, you have more than 15 cities in Germany who have more than 500,000 inhabitants. You also have some imbalances on the economical side. Here is the purchasing power of the individuals in Germany, and you see that in the southern regions of Germany, people have more purchasing power than in the eastern part of the country, still, unfortunately. Also, the business density is more important in the southwestern part of Germany still. And you see here the top 500 biggest companies are located still in the southwestern part of the country still. Also, you have imbalances regarding unemployment. I mentioned a figure of 3.4 beforehand, but if you look at the various regions in Germany, you have Bayern with 3.6. These are 2020 figures. The 3.4 I mentioned earlier was a figure from this year, from this summer. So it has gone down since then. And the more you go northeast, the more you have unemployment, with a figure of 10.5 in Berlin still. We've seen the main industry sectors of Germany. Let's see now what are the sectors in which you can expect more development opportunities. The key sectors, and to inspire me to answer that question, I had a look at the sectors that are promoted and supported in the German recovery plan that has been developed since the to get out of the COVID pandemic. You have a lot of investment, a lot of support, public support that is targeting the R&D and innovation sector, of course. Then you have a big sector, a big area, which is electromobility. not only electric vehicles, but also industrial transformation of the automotive sector, rail network and systems, reduction of harmful emissions from trucks, buses, planes, ships, sustainability in the smart cities, etc. So this is a very big topic for the future in Germany. Then you have, of course, the green sector with many support from the state and from the German regions for what they call over here the Energiewende, future energy systems, hydrogen, building energy performance. You have a lot of investments in digitalization, of course, in education, in the administration, in small and medium-sized companies, quantum technology, telecommunications, smart city, etc., etc. You have also a focus in the health sector, infection control, critical care capacity in hospitals, and the overall independence of the country in medical production. So these are the main focuses of the German recovery plan, and I suppose that these are the opportunity fields that you can expect from Germany in the coming years. Now, let's have a look at what we call the German way. Why is Germany successful? What makes the difference in particular between the French and German way of conducting business? You have this industrial culture and reality I just mentioned, and I just showed you with figures. You have this, what they call over here, Mittelstand, the small and medium-sized segment, but Mittelstand is not only a question of size, it's also a question of almost philosophy. It's privately owned family businesses. Some of them are hidden champions, world leader in their segment, very specialized, and the specialization is really a key word in Germany, linked with innovation. Little public intervention. Of course, COVID has changed things, and the German government has been obliged to intervene and to support the economy like it's never done before. But this is the exception. The rule is that the authorities are here to make a framework for business to be done by private-owned companies. And tax relief, Germany is in what tax about taxes is a company-friendly market, I would say. I'm not going to enter into details what the tax situation is about. I will leave Dorothée do this in our next webinar, but it's a reality. Let alone speak about the corporate tax. It's 15% over here when it's still 30% in France. We have a situation where industrial production and wage costs are important in Germany, but added value of manufacturing industry is very high too. Actually, the added value in manufacturing industry is 21%, as you can see here on this chart of the German GDP. It's 30% of the EU manufacturing potential, whereas France, Spain, Italy, and the UK that are present on this chart are half as important. You see here in the curves that if you start in the first quarter of 2010 with 100 as a base for the German manufacturing production, you end up with 119 in the end of 2019, whereas other countries were quite flat. So production is still carrying on, and it's growing in Germany, with of course labor costs that are not the cheapest, but not that different from, let's take France as a comparison. You see here in the second quarter of 2018, okay, sorry, I don't have more recent figures, but you know, the hourly price in the industry was not that different between France and Germany, where we had a difference in the early 2000s. We have in Germany also a minimum wage. It's for 2021, 9.6 euro per hour, when it's 10.5 almost in France. Very important also to see that one of the secrets of Germany is that they have this so-called Mittelstand, these companies between, I would say, 50 to 2,000 people and more, 500-ish than anything else, and they are very strong in this area. You see here a comparison. We have in France only 58% of the number of companies between 50 and 2,000 than they have over a year in Germany. So this area between 50 and 2,000 or even 4,000, 5,000 employees is an area where France is much weaker than Germany. Although we have almost the same number of companies overall in France and Germany, and although we have only 80% less population than Germany. Also, what makes a difference is that the German strategy is based on technology and high-end products. As I said, the Germans like to be specialized. They focus on one kind of product and one type of client, and they want to reach global excellence for this kind of product to this kind of clients, which enables them to increase the experience curve, to assert differentiating arguments, and again, to aim for global excellence. They are forced to export much earlier in the history of the company because they have chosen some specialization. And of course, they put the emphasis on top of the art and innovation, remain the top in a unique segment, and this enables them to cope with high production costs and to be able to buy the social piece and you know, provide the salaries that are asked by people over here. Focus on added value. And as a matter of fact, if you look at high-end technology products, Germany has a market share of 15% when France has only 6%. But once you've said that, innovation doesn't mean necessarily revolution. It's more of an evolution in Germany. Let's take an example. 1974, Volkswagen Golf, #1. What has happened since then? You have had a series of Golfs. You know, the last one came out 2019. It's the same car. It's the same concept. It's just been ameliorated. But the customer of 1974, you know, recognizes the concept 30, 40 years later. So it's sustainable. We've been ameliorating, and it hasn't been revolution. This is the German way of innovating. As a matter of fact, you see here what countries invest in R&D every year. The percentage of the R&D investment, public and private, compared to the GDP. So in value, it was 2019, 109 billion euros invested in Germany in R&D, public and private. That's 3.2% of the GDP. And it's gone from 2.4 in 2000 to 3.2 in 2019, where in France it was 215 to 220. Germans register 2.6 more European patents than France. They have 346 robots for 10,000 employees in the industry, which is #4 worldwide behind Singapore, South Korea, and Japan. France is not even on the chart here. It's 177. I've added manually. And to just take an example, we have now a program of 22 gigafactories of battery production plants in Europe, and 10 out of these 22 are planned on German soil. The tax burden, I mentioned that Germany is a tax-friendly country. Yes, it is. Employers' social costs on salaries. Sadly, France is number 2 in Europe. When you pay someone 100 euro wage, it will cost you 146 in France. When it'll only cost you, let me find Germany here, 28. And even these 28 are topped at a certain wage level. They don't grow anymore. If you have a look here at what taxes and contribution weight as a percentage of GDP, sadly you have France with 46% and Germany 38.2%. So these 7.9%, they just represent 170 billion euros of the French GDP. And public expenditures as a percentage of GDP, here also France 55% and Germany only 45%. This is 245 billion euros that are still available in German economy when they are not available in France because they are spent in public expenditure. So you have really a different approach, macroeconomic approach. And as I mentioned earlier on, Germany was very proud and still is of its Schwarze Null strategy, which means that you know what the Maastricht criteria mean, and you try to have as a percentage of your GDP a trade surplus, not a trade surplus, a budget surplus every year. Of course, not in 2020, and also the debt is, as I mentioned earlier on, very low, 71% of GDP in Germany. So this gives some room for action for the future. At a glance, number 1 European economy, number 4 global economy, approximately 8% global market share, less than 4% unemployment, industry still 23% of GDP, high-end and high-tech positioning, 3.7% of investment in 2021 compared to GDP, and R&D is 3.2%. An accumulated budget surplus since 2012 of 214 billion euros, which makes it easy for the German government now to spend more money and to support its economy in hard times. It's also number 3 global importer, number 3 global exporter. It's a springboard market for Central Europe. If you sell, to German clients in the industry, you can be sure that your product is going to be exported in other countries, starting with Central Europe, China, and the Americas. And it's France's first client and first supplier, whereas France is only number 3 in terms of client and number 5 in terms of supply for Germany. So this was to give you a big picture about the potential of this market and the sense it makes for your clients to be interested in developing business over here. But it's not as easy as it sounds. Intercultural approach. Still Angela for a few weeks. I will have to change this in a few weeks with Olaf, probably. But when French presidents have visions and dreams, the Germans are here to, remind of the rules. And indeed, of course, it will be very difficult for me in a few minutes to describe the typical German, and I don't want to do this. Everyone has his history, and every individual person has its own, culture. But if I have to do this in a few minutes, I would mention some main trends. First, you have a country of specialists, of experts, and experts talk to experts, like to be talking to experts. I'm French. We in France, we like generalists. we like to have a very broad culture, know everything, be able to talk about a lot of things. We have this, education program called Polytechnique, polytechnical education, when we don't like to narrow our minds on one specific topic, and this is something often a problem, because when you arrive in Germany with very generic and very open discussions and open arguments, the Germans have the feeling that you are not a specialist, so you don't really know, and you're not going to bring some added value, some very specific added value to them. So it's a country of specialists, and it's a country of technicians that like the techniques, that like the industry. Another characteristic, I would say, is securing. Germans are people who like securing everything. They don't like to take risks, or if they take risks, they like to measure the risk beforehand, and they will not act before they have the feeling that they have, canvassed all the possible risks and have imagined a solution should this or this happen. So it's also here very important to reassure them if you want to do business with them, because in their minds they will have, of course, the idea that, or the feeling that it may be interesting, it may be an opportunity to work with you, but it's also a risk. And how do I minimize the risk? If you have reassuring answers to bring to this risky aspect of things, then you are welcome in Germany. Germans are time focused. You better be right on time if you have a meeting with a German, not before, not after, but not before. And also here, of course, delivery times that are given should really be respected. Germans have a collective mindset. It's the good news is that if you do a good job, you can be part of the group at a certain point. But in the first times that you work with them, you're not part of the group. You have to prove yourselves. So they will play collective, and if they have a supplier that they work with since 20 years, well, it's going to be difficult to take his place. You will have to show many assets before they will do so. But once you are in, it will take time, but once you're in, you're not rejected because some other supplier comes with some very broad idea. And the last characteristic I wanted to mention today is the Germans are collective, have a collective mindset, but they are still local. I mean, you don't eat the same in Munich than up in the north in Bremen. You don't even speak the same language to some extent. Accents are different. People recognize themselves with the accent. And Germany is a puzzle, a mosaic of very local places that were put together in the history of the country, and a lot remains in this think local attitude. So the good news is that Germany is not a whole. You can start in a certain place of Germany and expand progressively. Strategic choices. Where am I in terms of time? Strategic choices and practical recommendations or solutions. Market challenges. We've seen that there's an obvious economic potential. It must be a priority market for any company wanting to address Europe. There is an intense competition over here, German companies, but also international companies. Germans are permanently seeking for competitiveness factors. So you have to put this in highlight this when you approach them. What makes you something that will enhance or ameliorate their competitiveness? They are security-minded people, and they have the culture of image and concreteness. And the consequence is that you have to make the appropriate strategic choice. favor direct contact with the market to feel the reaction of the market directly, the more directly possible, inspire confidence over time, and project your development on the German market in the long term. It's not a country of opportunity where the first meeting generates first order. You have to take time to be successful. So what you should do is prepare yourself to understand the market, because it's different, because it's going to be different. Understand the market, prepare your SWOT analysis, draw up a plan, an action plan, and have a look at the regulatory obstacles, the purchasing habits, which may be different, the competition, how do they act, how do they present themselves, where are they present, etc. And think of your differentiation drives to make the difference with existing suppliers. So which is the best approach? Basically, you have 4 possible approaches. Commercial agents, that makes sense if you have simple products, short and recurrent sales cycles, and a client base which is spread all over the country. Typical example out of our portfolio is a company that is manufacturing spectacles frames. Their clients are opticians. There are 10,000 of them in Germany. So, and half of them are in groups, in larger companies like Fielmann or Apollo, and all the others are independent opticians. You have to visit them to show them the products, to take orders. This is impossible to do with own salespeople. So there you have to have commercial agents that are commissioned and that will work for you on a commission basis, and they own the clients, so you have to pay them back if you want to get rid of them. But this is the only way to develop on the German market in this situation. Distributors. This is relevant if you need local logistics, installation, service. There you will have to have distributors all over the place to take care about these aspects. Here an example out of our portfolio. This is a company that is selling industrial marking products. The value of one of these products is cents, and they are present in the catalogs of industrial distributors. And here the strategy was be listed in the catalogs of 4 to 5 major industrial goods distributors in Germany. Then you have the solution of having an industrial partner or an integrator. If you develop and sell components or sub-assemblies, one of our clients is developing and selling optical vision solutions to sort parts, industrial parts, the goods from the bad ones. This is not a standalone solution. It is built in larger machines, and here the strategy was to convince larger machine manufacturers to integrate these components and sub-assembly in their own products or equipments. And last but not least, the direct approach. That's relevant if you have specific products with long sales act and if you're addressing key accounts. Here an example out of the food industry. It's a company that we have supported who is manufacturing pet food, dry pet food. And here the clients are major food retailers or do-it-yourself retailers. And the strategy was here to provide these retailers with products we manufacture under their own brand label. So here, you cannot do this with an agent, you cannot do this with a distributor. You have to have your own direct contact with the key accounts, defining what they want, the recipe, the packaging, etc. It lasts 6 months to 1 year to make sure that you have the right product and the right contract, and then it rolls over years. So these are the main strategic decisions you have to make. I had prepared examples for each of them, but we don't have, I think, time to go through them. So I will, go through the few slides that I have here with pros and cons and examples taken from companies that we have accompanied to go directly to this slide. work on your image. This is also a very important recommendation. Opt for a German style commercial approach. In France, we have this expression saying, l'habit ne fait pas le moine, meaning, it's not because you look like a monk that you are a monk. And the Germans have the same expression, but it just says the country. And it says, Kleider machen Leute. The clothes make the people. And so image is very important in Germany. You only have one occasion to present yourself for the first time. It better be the best one that leaves the best impression. Also, you have some faux amis, as we say in French. The word concept means in France, some vague idea that we have that needs to be defined and fine-tuned. The word concept with a K is a very detailed description of an idea. And if you come to the German and say, I would like to present my concept and have 2 PowerPoint slides, they will be disappointed because they were expecting a lights file. So very important to work on your image, build confidence, reassure about yourself, about the proof of concept. Again, Kleider machen Leute, so invest in documents, in the wording, in the rational aspect of things rather than emotional. The idea is to become a supplier like any other. We know about the clients that they are seeking for security. They seek quality and reliability. They're interested in the applied rather than the theoretical. They like measurable facts. They ask for referrals and endorsement. They think long-term and they want sustainability with a new supplier. They have a technical approach and are interested in innovation, and they seek specialization and professional expertise. So this means that you have to define your unique selling proposition. You have to detail it. You have to make sure that they get to know why they should be working with you, answering the questions that we have here, which means that a typical presentation, PowerPoint presentation, as a matter of fact, will not only have an illustrating front page, but then the key figures of the company, the history of the company, the USP, our know-how, our competencies, our distinctive advantages, the applications. How does this, concretely describe itself in terms of product application? The means that we have to produce and to be able to deliver, the quality policy, the references that we have, and of course, the contact details. I'm not going to show you a typical example. I had prepared it, but time is going to be too short. After having worked on your image, you have to work on your client base. Who are we targeting? How do we build our target portfolio? And how and the answer to how we do that is we do it by analogy. We don't take the risk to contact potential clients in Germany we've never delivered anything to in France. So we will work by analogy based on the existing experience and references. And also we will pay attention to the accessibility of the targets. It makes no sense for a medium-sized French company to contact Bosch, Continental, Daimler, if they work in the automotive market. There are so many very important and very nice small and medium-sized companies in Germany to be addressed, where it's going to be more easy to enter. Here are a few ideas of how you target these companies. There are databases. I'm not going to enter into details, but this is ways of identifying potential clients, and also ways of making them yourselves known by potential buyers. There is this online database, Der liefert was, which is very interesting and triggers a lot of lead generation. Plan and budget your action plan. A few words about this. Preparation, I mentioned it before, very important. Prepare yourself before you enter into contact. Again, there's only one occasion to present oneself for the first time. Then the development phase. You can outsource sales representation. We do this. You can build up a sales office. an outsourced sales and administration before, in the acceleration phase, you integrate with your own subsidiary and salaried sales reps. And then the consolidation phase, extend the sales teams and localize other support functions. And why not think of external growth? But you have to give yourself time, 2 to 3 years to reach the 500 to 1 million, 500K to 1 million euro revenue, and then another 2 years to make sure that Germany weighs 10% of your export turnover. Last word, Mark, you tell me if it's too long, about interaction with the Germans. Here I have also a comparison between France and Germany in the 4C negotiation process. 4 C's are contact, the first contact you have with someone. Then the second C is canvas. How do you question your counterpart to understand what he needs, what he requires? Then the convincing phase. What do you say to make sure that he wants to work with you? And the conclusion phase. In France, we have a long contact period. We have to get together. We have to know each other. We have to appreciate each other. It's based on emotions. We like to work with people we like. Then we have a very long canvassing phase. We ask questions, and we are taught in business schools in France to ask open question, closed question, and scale questions, etc. All types of questions to come to the conclusion that I have understood what you need and what you require, and I have understood it so well that in the convincing phase, I only have to focus on what I have understood of your need, and it's so bespoke that you can only accept it. And the conclusion phase. In Germany, the first phase contact is very short. You don't want to speak about sports and things like that on a first contact. Business is business. The canvas part, understand what my counterpart needs and wants, is also rather short, and it's not after the contact period. The Germans, they argument first. They explain to you very longly all they can do, how they do it, how good and how fantastic it is. And then they will ask you, what do you need? What do you require? But here they want to, put the emphasis on how good they are. If you do this to a French guy, he will say, well, he's not even interested in who I am and what I require. But if you come to a German asking question before having convinced him that you are someone of interest, he will, stop you and say, hey, stop asking me questions. Tell me who you are and how and why I should, consider giving you my time, my precious time. And the conclusion phase is also very long. So here, really, we have an inversion of the progress. Negotiation is say what you do and do what you say. To summarize things, hierarchy is very important in Germany. You don't want to, contact the boss. You have to talk to the people at the right level. You don't mix up business and non-business, not at start, at least. Negotiation is very sequential in Germany. It's not because you have a weakness here that they will be conciliant with a strength here. They will be conciliant with a weakness somewhere else. So you have to prepare your limits and know how and know when you have to say no to something they ask. You have to engage first and then question. I just mentioned it before. You can seek interaction with Germans, set next steps and stick to them. Oops, sorry. You have to favor the right price approach in Germany. Giving a first price with 20% negotiation possibility is not good, because they will say it's too expensive and you have no second chance. That's one possibility. Or they will discover later on that you were trying to get the best out of them in terms of price, and this is not good for business. And absolutely avoid a promise that you cannot meet. Last slide, I promise, the do's and don'ts. Respect timing and deadlines. I mentioned it earlier on, but this is critical for the Germans because they themselves organize their timeline. And if you are late, this happens to be late, but telling it early enough is critical, is very important. You don't interrupt a German that is speaking because, if you want to understand what he says, the verb being at the end of sentence, you have to wait until the end of the sentence. In France, we interrupt constantly people, which is okay and accepted in France. In Germany, it's not, it's a question of politeness. You can use direct style in Germany. If Germans are not happy with you, they will tell it, and not very diplomatically. So you can do the same, and it's a sign of honesty and simplicity of communication. You don't reveal confidential informations during the selling process. It happens that you say, "Oh, we've done this for this client, and we've done it that way." For them, it's a sign that you will also tell secrets about themselves later on to someone else. So prevent doing that. You respect the organization chart. I mentioned it already. You respect the contract in Germany. It's very important. Contracts are done to deal with situations, difficult situations. So you have to stick with them. Select the participants at meetings. It's not because the Germans come over to France to visit the factory that you have to have 10 people around the table. Only the ones that are relevant should be attending the meeting. Set an agenda if you have a meeting with Germans, and stick to the agenda, the whole agenda, because they will have prepared themselves for the points that were foreseen in the agenda. So you have to choose a timing that enables the whole of the agenda to be tackled, but only the agenda. They will not really like to express themselves on some topic that was not foreseen in the agenda spontaneously. Pay attention to hospitality when you welcome Germans at your factory, be it in France or anywhere else, with welcome signs, with the premises cleaned up and things like that. The organization of their time over there. And last point, and that's a sign of humor, beware of familiarities and humor. In France and in the Anglo-Saxon world, we like humor, and this is a way of easing things. But with some Germans, I better be careful to enter too early into familiarities and humor. They really separate business and private life. Yes, and that's just to summarize a few of the keywords that I used during this webinar. First series of keywords in black, which means that you have to focus on references, expertise, specialty, unique selling proposition, know-how. Then a few words in red that mean that you have to make yourself known, understand the ecosystems over here, make sure that you have lead generations and you manage your key accounts properly and with patience. In terms of project timing, in order to become one of the main suppliers of your clients, and the yellow to be in accordance with the German flag, the yellow words, intercultural aspects, distanciation, don't mix business and private, direct style, the contract, very important, price, promise, these and routine. The Germans are like when things turn out to be routine. This is for them reassuring. We have spent many times defining our interactions between you, supplier, and us, client. But once we have defined this, we stick to it. And routine is reassuring in a way. That's it. A bit longer than foreseen, but sorry.
No, thank you, Fred. It's a complete panorama. It's more than an insight, very complete information. And I saw a question, maybe, I don't know if I can start with a question, but you put this question, Dorothée, if I read well. It's about succession issues and then, of course, opportunity maybe to buy business in Germany and M&A opportunities. So it is a real opportunity, Fred, or it's only a view? You are muted.
Sorry. Yes, I was talking about this Mittelstand, these family-owned businesses in Germany, and in the coming years, more than 500,000 of them have to take care about their future. So these are opportunities clearly for any foreign investor wanting to enter the German market, because not only are targets available, but in terms of strategy, it might make sense for some companies to buy the market share rather than build it up and take 2, 3, 4 years to get market shares. If you buy a company, if you buy your place on the market, all of a sudden you are present, you are German, you have the local image. So yes, it does make sense.
Okay.
And there is potential.
And just maybe an additional information, because on your last slide, it's clearly written #1 for to accompany French and German in their business. But of course, if somebody from Turkey, from Switzerland, from Italy, from Bulgaria wants to be your clients and to be supported by your organization, it's possible.
Yes, that's why we created a few years ago this subsidiary called Strategy and Action International, which is a German company which belongs to us, and this enables us to work for any company anywhere, not only for French companies in direction of Germany, which is the main focus, of course, of the French chamber in Germany. But yeah, of course, anyone welcome.
So haben Sie
Fragen?
Another question in the chat box, Mark, if you want.
In the chat box, yes. Let's see it.
Chat box. We understand that we are very different. What are the key economic sectors that France and Germany should work together?
I wouldn't say automotive, because Germany is very strong in the automotive sector, France less. But we have this huge challenge of the green economy, and I see here a lot of course, talking about energy. We have also made very different choices. Germany abandoning the nuclear production, electricity production, and France now reinvesting in it. But now I'm talking about transforming the whole industry, and this is a huge challenge. And here I see a lot of potential working together in this area. Also in the digitalization area, France is very vivid in terms of startups, in terms of digital based businesses, and here I see a lot of to combine the digital expertise of French startups with the industrial expertise of industry companies in Germany. I see here very, very, very good cooperation and collaboration potential. Just to mention two examples.
We have Emmanuel with us from Africa, and what is the relationship between Germany and Africa in general?
Germany has some historic relationship with some African countries, but not as intense than the French have. And this is also, as a matter of fact, a point of cooperation and collaboration. The Germans are very strong in the Eastern European countries, in Asia, in the Americas, whereas France often is more implemented in North Africa and even the other parts of Africa, And sometimes, French and German companies who combine their efforts, they can profit them from each other. The Germans from the French introduction in Africa, and the French from the introduction in the Eastern European and other parts of the world. I don't have precise figures about the trade exchanges between Germany and Africa, but in the charts that we had before, the top 15, top 20 partners, I'm not sure that we saw many African countries. So yeah, here also maybe cooperation and collaboration topics between France and Germany.
Okay.
Fred, this is Jim Dawson from the U.S.
Yep.
Very, very nice presentation. One of the best I've participated in quite a while. So I appreciate the effort that you put into this.
Thank you.
One thing I wanted to just quickly mention, I know that the comparison was France and Germany, but one thing I wanted to point out real quickly is I'm sitting in Atlanta. So I'm in the automotive valley of the southeast of the United States. And within 2 hours of Atlanta, I have, in Atlanta, Mercedes North American headquarters is in Atlanta, as is Porsche. We have at least 2, if not 3, Mercedes plants in the region. We have BMW, which is over in South Carolina. And outside of those, we have Kia, Hyundai, we have Volkswagen. Volkswagen is 2 hours up the road. I only mention that because what I'm seeing is within this region, as it relates in particular to Germany, there are literally hundreds, if not thousands, of tier 1 through whatever suppliers to those major automotive manufacturers. I believe that there's opportunities for TGS to form a strategy by which we can look at how we approach these companies, these tiered suppliers, to generate service revenue for the 2 respective countries. I really think there's some tremendous opportunities here. I see a lot of activity of German manufacturers, tiered suppliers going to Mexico to take advantage of the U.S. MCA with our new trade agreement with Canada and Mexico. A lot of manufacturing is happening south of the U.S. border, and the products are being brought to the United States, to this region, for final assembly and then distribution throughout the country. So that's just something that we want to keep in mind. I know automotive is a very, very strong sector for Germany, and it likewise has left quite an impression. It literally employs hundreds of thousands of people here in the southeast of the United States.
Oh, thank you for your comment. Jim. Murat, you wanted to add something? No, maybe I'm wrong.
No. I was just saying, I think this presentation was really insightful. We're trying to find ways that we can work. When I personally look at Europe, I look at Germany, France, Italy, Spain, and the United Kingdom. So those are the countries that I look at, not to leave any of the others out, but when I look at investment in the United States and U.S. investment going overseas, with maybe the exception of the Netherlands, those are the main countries that we see activity. So great presentation. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, James.
Anyone else?
No. Dorothée, Florian, next is Mal. Okay.
If I just may add to what Fred says, so it's really the M&A market. It's really a challenge at this moment. There are really a lot of companies to be sold, and with this year we had an activity we never had before in foreign companies buying German companies. And as you know, there's no, the interest rates are low or even negative. So a lot of investments are done in this sector and there are a lot of opportunities. So if one of your clients is seeking for something like this, they could ask Fred, they could make a market analysis to get more information about this.
Okay. Thank you. Vielen Dank, Dorothee. Okay. So we really thank you, Fred, for your investment, because that was an investment. So
thank you for having me.
For having shared all your comments and your personal view and a big part of your German knowledge. So thank you, because we had the opportunity to exchange before, of course, to prepare this session. And we had some specific expectation, and thank you. We have the answer we wanted to have, and we had a very global and a very practical, pragmatic presentation.